Scotland.
Hello, very good evening to you. Welcome to the locker room on this Matchday 6 Champions League night, and it's over for the Scottish teams in Europe this season, but in the Champions League as well. It was a masterclass tonight, up against the big boys, Real Madrid 5, Celtic 1. And it was a game of firsts tonight, because that game will be remembered as the VAR game for penalty kicks, and also I think it was the second game that the female official was on the game, so it's good to see a female ref getting into the men's game. I think she ref a Champions League game, that was it this season or last season, I can't remember, but good to see that. Good to see equality in all parts of that game. Right, that's me being nice out the way. On to the game now. That was the quick warm-up for you guys. Joined tonight by these handsome two devils. I'm sorry they can't be here tonight, so we've got to put up with Graham and Dave till 10. I want now, before I begin the show tonight, Graham, I wondered if Dave is going to stay for the whole show tonight.
Yeah, apologies by the way, because I was too tired after box. I was needing my bed last night, but we're fine tonight. We're fine tonight, honestly.
I thought you ran away because I thought you ran. You won the snowball at the bingo or something. You know, your number came up, but yeah, good to see you, Dave. And Graham, well, yeah, good to see you as well. Remember, if you want to comment on Twitter, Facebook, you know what to do by now. We've only been here for about 5 years. And you can comment on Twitter as well, at the Locker Room Indie on Twitter. So, Graham, where do you want to start tonight? Obviously, I kind of agree with you. Celtic can give few chances again, but it's one of these ones where if you don't take your chances at this level, you'll get punished, and that's what happened tonight.
Yeah, this is going to sound really bizarre, but if you hadn't watched that game and you just saw the result 5-1, you're thinking absolute canter for Madrid. And yes, it does look like that, but Celtic did have chances tonight. You know, yet again, in pretty much every Champions League game this season, Celtic have created chances and they just haven't been clinical enough. Now, again, for anyone that's watching, if anyone can tell me the handball rule, I'd love to know, because I'm generally confused about what it is. Some weeks these decisions are penalties, some weeks they aren't. I thought the two penalties that Real Madrid got were incredibly harsh, and I'll be honest, I don't think you get them in Scotland, as Michael's mythical weeks again showed. But, you know, I just think Celtic at 2-0 down had that chance for Juranovic's penalty. Now, whether it made a difference, I don't know. Real Madrid might have still won the game comfortably, but that penalty miss was a kind of a turning point. I think it wasn't a great penalty. You know, Courtois dived the right way. It's a good height for him. But as a football fan, as a football purist, I'm watching guys like Luka Modric, I'm watching Toni Kroos, I'm watching Valverde. The quality these guys have is unbelievable. That's why I love watching football. You watch these guys in tight spaces get the ball. It doesn't matter if they've got a man marking them. They know they've got the ability to get out of that. The passing range, the touch, the technique. They very rarely give the ball away. It's just incredible to watch. And Celtic at times tonight actually played quite well. But you're up against absolute clash. You know, you're up against a team that can bring on Benzema after 63 minutes and he doesn't score. But I think Celtic can take a lot of positives for this game. I did think they played a lot of good stuff. But you're up against an absolutely outstanding side who took their chances and won the game comfortably. But I just think Celtic at times tonight did play some good stuff.
Dave, we're going to come back to speak about VAR later on in the show, because I've came to the point that that kind of like strikers are going to have a field day, because soon as somebody puts his arm out, oh yeah, let's play the ball off him, because guess what? You'll get a penalty, and that's what happened tonight. But Dave, I wanted to go back to that in a minute. But what was your take on the 90 minutes?
Michael, can I answer that second question? I just want to speak about penalties first and foremost. Graham, I understand where you're coming from in your opinion, but I'm going to be honest and say I think the second one's a penalty. Why? Well, I'll clarify my stance on this. I don't think it's a penalty, but it's right. I'll try and say this in the most singular way possible. Because of his direction of arm, because he goes out with that, right? It's a penalty. Had he done like that and been like that, it's probably not a penalty, right? Had it went where my hand is right now, right? It's probably not a penalty, right? Because his, I understand he can't obviously move his body and all that, but the reason why I think the referees gave it is because of his positioning within the body. Now, it's not a penalty, but that's why I think the penalty's been given for that second one. The first one, I think Jens can do a little bit better because of his positioning. Again, it's quite quick and all that kind of stuff, but the guys were touching upon it, and the pundits post-match, Stuart Armstrong in particular. And I think Stuart Armstrong made some very good points to Emma Dodds, where if it wasn't for the positioning of the players, it's simple as it penalties. I think both of them are penalties quite simply because of the positioning of where they're based. Can they do better, both of them? I think they can.
Graham?
Yeah, I don't disagree, but it's just like every week we're seeing penalties given for completely different things. It's just the handball rule is one of these very subjective ones. And I think for the second one in particular, look at the referee's position. Now, she is looking straight at that, and she does give it. It does go, I think it goes to VAR, and it is given. But I think every week you're seeing penalties that you think that's a penalty that's not given. Another week you're seeing penalties that aren't given that you think that's a penalty. So the handball rule for me is just it's very subjective, but I get where Dave's coming from, but I do think they're very hard.
Sorry, Graham. That's the difference between Champions League football and Scottish football.
Yeah.
Because we're so far behind in terms of refereeing standards and European football pedigrees and calibre of standard of referees, and the fact that our officials in this country are part-time, we're always going to get decisions which seem, which seem mediocre and seem burglary in the aspect of teams getting away with F-all, right? F-all in the aspect that penalties can be given or not given all the time. It's a different story in the Champions League.
I think as well, I agree with you on your that point, Dave. But I think that we've got a long way to go in terms of speeding up the games so quickly. I mean, there was 1 minute at the end of the game tonight, and if that was in Scotland, it would have been 9 minutes had he gone at the end of the game. But I mean, where I disagree with you is the two Real Madrid penalties. They weren't in the penalties. But I'm not saying
they were penalties. I'm just saying they were penalties because basically of the angle. I felt they could have done a little bit better. I think Stuart Armstrong kind of hit the nail on the head in commentary.
Yeah. But the point I'm trying to make is well that okay that there weren't penalties and stuff, but they were quick and she was making the decisions on the ball very quickly. If that was in Scotland, that would get took 10 minutes. I mean, look at the game at Tynecastle. Was it Celtic against Hearts? 7 minutes. And that was all to do with VAR. Okay, maybe a couple of injuries in there as well, but the majority of it was to do with VAR. And and I know we're not going to spend the next hour speaking about VAR because trust me, we can do it till the end of the season, but that's going to spoil the game now, Graham.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at that Liverpool game yesterday against Napoli, there was 10 minutes added on, and a lot of that was VAR. Mo Salah's first goal took at least 3 minutes to get a decision on that, if it was offside or not. So yeah, I mean, I think in Scottish football, as I mentioned to Dave on Sunday, we were on the show, we talked about this, and we said that Ian Maxwell said when VR came in, it was going to be horrendous, and I think you're seeing that already. So that's something that does need to get speeded up a little bit. But you're right, in terms of the referee tonight, she was very quick to award them. But, once the penalties are given, they still got to be scored, and they were. But I just think overall, Madrid's quality did show. But as I said, I do think that Celtic can take a lot of positives tonight, because I did think in spells they played some really good stuff tonight. And again, you look at Kyogo misses a couple of chances. They get, obviously, a fantastic goal from Jota from the free kick. I think Giakoumakis comes on and has a chance well saved. And quite a few of the shots they had were straight at Courtois, but they had the chances. So again, it's about, at this level, you've got to be clinical. Now, I don't know next season. I wouldn't have thought that if Celtic get back to the Champions League again, which I think they will, I don't think Postecoglou will change the way that he plays to be a bit more kind of pragmatic. I think he'll play exactly the same way. But it's a case of when you get these chances at this level, you have to finish them.
Well, go back to the game's point, not just from that last point there, but earlier on this evening. We're 11 minutes in, and none of you have mentioned yet about how the 2 goals played a significant part in the outcome tonight. I mean, the fact that Real Madrid had the first penalty and the second penalty, which is controversial and possesses a lot of doubt in a lot of people's minds. It was pivotal in terms of the outcome of the game, and it was contentious to say the least. I mean, that specific angle where you get hit here and hit here and hit here, and hit in all these different parts of the elbows and all that kind of stuff. By the way, I'm sounding like some form of monster here, but that it's a very touchy subject, as you guys have said. It's subjective, and as I've said, it's possessed a major outcome in the game. And as Michael said at the top of the show, it's one of those that if you want to just hit the ball off somebody's arm, you can just do that. And that just goes to show you where football's at nowadays. I mean, you have to pretty much be the slimmest guy. When I mean slimmest, I mean not exactly my height, not exactly Graham's height either, if we're going to be perfectly honest. You need to be one of these guys that's like pint-sized, in all honesty, in order for you to not give penalties away. So, yeah, that's been very pivotal in terms of the outcome of the game, because let's be honest, as much as Real Madrid ran rampant in the end tonight, I mean, the game was ultimately decided by those decisions, and ultimately still missing their penalty, of course, as well, of course. Ultimately, if you look at the first half, the major talking points in the game were that 2 penalty decisions and a major outcome in the game.
I think Celtic's best move in the first half was it Atati. He played the ball to Kyogo.
Well, sorry, Michael. Ange Postecoglou must be the happiest man on the planet right now, because both of them aren't going to the World Cup this year. Atati, what a player.
Yeah, I honestly have to find that bizarre that him and Kyogo aren't going in Maeda. Is. Listen, I think Maeda's a good player, but has he had as good a season as Kyogo and Hatate? I'm not convinced he has.
Dave, Celtic's not had a penalty since, was it April? In the past 2 games, they've had 2 penalties, and 2 penalties has missed. Maybe Celtic should get a penalty again.
Did they have a penalty miss on Saturday or Sunday?
I'm thinking Giakoumakis.
Oh, pardon me. Sorry, I forgot about that one. No. Let's be honest. I understand Courtois got to go and make the save. And by the way, Courtois doing very, very well for Real Madrid. But it's a goalkeeper height, isn't it? It's a goalkeeper height.
Brilliant save, but and I might be wrong here, right? But I think the last man to miss a penalty for Celtic was Giakoumakis against Livingston at Parkhead last season in April.
Yeah, it was a last minute.
Yeah, he had the bar. Yeah. Now I don't know.
No, that kid the bar.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. The guy, have you ever heard that joke before? Anyway, the guy walks into the bar, and the rest is history. So how would obviously we're going to touch upon Dave's point millions of times on the show. as well between now and Friday. But how would Celtic reflect on the Champions League campaign? Because I feel as though I feel as though if Celtic took their chances, we might be sitting here tonight with Celtic qualifying or else to still be in Europe and make the Europa League. But again, if you can't take your chances, you don't deserve to win the game. Is that a fair comment, Dave?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, Celtic, as Graham's touched upon in particular, they've had some good spells in Champions League games this term, but just haven't had enough of a mentality. They haven't been streetwise enough, and only haven't had enough experience between them to merit a good primary effort in the Champions League this term. And against Shakhtar, they just came up short in them games where they were winnable assignments. Leipzig panicked. Well, they had to panic basically because after the first game it was totally woeful, and then knew they had to make a change with Tedesco because as Al Morrison touched upon in this specific show a couple weeks back, then obviously Tedesco's style where Leipzig wasn't exactly befitting of a side of that calibre and a side that knew were a decent side, but Marco Rose has turned things around. You knew you'd get that with somebody that's used to manage Dortmund and a guy that's done well for himself in the game. But yeah, I think Celtic possessed a better challenge. But ultimately tonight, you've got to remember, guys, there's no Carter Vickers and no
Cam McGregor.
Yeah, no Carter McGregor, but I'd say Carter Vickers in this essence tonight was a bigger miss than McGregor. Now, Carter McGregor's also a good player for Celtic, but I'd argue that Carter Vickers was a bigger miss because you look at how Celtic were set up defensively and in the defensive midfield area. Every time the left winger got the ball, Asensio, every time he got on the ball, it looked as though Celtic were having to either go towards him or there was somebody getting left in behind, which meant Celtic were getting a lot of holes in those specific areas. Same with Carl McGregor as well, of course. I mean, had he been involved tonight, let's be honest, like so you look at Modric's and other midfielders and Valverde, sorry, they're class above. There's no other way to put it. I mean, Conor McGregor's obviously one of the best midfielders in Scottish Premiership football at this precise moment of time. But yeah, it's different playing against the likes of Livingston players, Hearts players, Hibs players, so forth, in comparison to playing against Valverde's, Modric's, who, like some player, looking forward to an exciting World Cup coming up and are expected to be the two top players in the midfield when the World Cup takes place in a couple of weeks' time. So when you look at that and look at the overall parallels, it was just going to be a tough ask for Celtic tonight. And when the first half's misdemeanors didn't exactly help events at all, did it? But second half, Real Madrid showed their class, didn't they? I mean, they scored a great goal. Joe Hart could have maybe done a bit more with first goal, maybe? First goal?
Yeah. First goal, yeah.
Yeah, he could have done a bit more with that. But overall, some great strikes, not helped by the fact that I think Carter Vickers was unavailable because Celtic did lack, first and foremost, I think, a defensive organisation, but secondly, also lacked an ability to lead from the front as well and and have that expert defender behind them. So overall, they were left behind, and it was a disappointing night for Ange Postecoglou's side. But by the way, the clumsy tit of the night, and I didn't swear there, the clumsy tit of the night is Liam McLeod for saying Celtic's Champions League campaign ends in positivity. They can beat 5-1,
Liam. Waking up. Grim, I'm trying to think of a small positive to take out the game. And do you think that the small positive would be to see Scarfield back in the team?
I think the positive is Jota's goal. It's a fantastic strike. But yeah, it was good to see Karastov back. And I just think that, I mean, if you just look at that Real Madrid midfield compared to Celtic, Celtic have got Hatate, they've got O'Reilly, and they've got, who was the other one that played in there? Can't remember the other one. But you're playing against guys like Modric, Kroos, and Valverde, who are just outstanding quality. It's very difficult to cope with that. But I think for me, the massive positive for me has got to be that goal from Jota. Those Celtic fans have travelled over there in their numbers, and they managed to see their team score at the Bernabeu with a brilliant strike. You should have seen them score a couple of goals because obviously the penalty missed by Juranovic. But I think there are positives for Celtic to take tonight. I think you look at the way that Postecoglou sets this side up. Now, that would have been very easy for Postecoglou to go there tonight, play 4-5-1, play really defensive, but he didn't do that. He's gone toe-to-toe against Madrid, and he's gone, do you know what, we're going to have a go, because that's the way I want to play. And yeah, maybe they were exposed a little bit, but I think it's great that you're seeing teams actually having a go at these teams and not sitting back and just accepting defeat. So there are positives to take from Celtic tonight and through this Champions League campaign, which does sound mental because they've not got enough points. But I think if you're Postecoglou looking at it and thinking, you know what, we can learn lessons from this tonight. We'll go again next season and we'll come against the quality again, which I'm sure they will. We can hopefully do a bit better or take our chances, because that's probably maybe around 70-odd shots they've had in this Champions League and scored 3 goals. So there's where you're falling down.
I'm going to say something weird here, guys, right? Obviously, the Celtic fans would be disappointed to get knocked out of the Champions League and knocked out of Europe altogether. But if you think about it, as Graham said this, and obviously we said this last night as well, it would be more worrying if Celtic were getting battered every game and not having any chances in front of goal. But because that they create the chances, it's there. It's there. It's just a bit of confidence and playing in the same team together and moulding them better for next season. Is that a fair point, Dave?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, this Celtic side have been together for a year now, but the one thing they've been lacking probably is the lack of European football. I mean, they were woeful in the Europa Conference League last year, and then obviously Champions League wise, it was their first taste of Champions League football this season. Let's be honest, I think Celtic aren't as ruthless as they were last season. Last season they were ruthless and got in the front foot and obviously exposed teams left, right, and centre, and they've not been as ruthless this season. And maybe that's been the bottom line for me. But ultimately, it was going to be a big experience for Celtic tonight. They were at a cathedral tonight. There's no other way to put it. They were at a cathedral because they're called the Galacticos for a reason. They're called the Galacticos because quite simply, they have the best players in the world, they have the best foundations in the world, they have the best structures in the world, and they just have everything going right about them. 12 Champions Leagues is no fluke, and that's a sign of a type of opponent that we're up against tonight. And it was always going to be a hard ask for Celtic. But I mean, there was this big cry about budgets and so forth, and obviously we described about budgets last night, so I'll not elaborate onto that even further. But you look at a Sheriff Tiraspol last season, for example, who went toe-to-toe with Real Madrid at the Bernabeu, and you do argue from a Scottish football perspective, could we have done more? 100%, absolutely. But at exactly the same time, it's a lot to learn from a Celtic point of view. Let's be honest, it's a sobering thought that we've not had a lot of success in Champions League for our Celtic or Rangers in the best part of a decade now. I mean, Celtic did reasonably well under Rodgers, but I say reasonably vehemently because, let's be honest, it wasn't that great. It wasn't. So, in terms of the last decade, it's been very sober for Scottish football. I mean, that's why Scottish football, we speak all the time, why the hell do we not get marketed well, or why the hell do we not get the right TV coverage and all that kind of stuff. Ultimately, it comes down to the product in the park. And the product in the park is reasonable enough on domestic level because obviously you get so much evenly contested games, you get so much battles, so much competitiveness, so much euphoria, so much ecstasy, so much enthusiasm about Scottish football. Ultimately, what the broadcasters want, what people want, what sponsorship deals want, what bookmakers want, what beer providing partners want. They want sides that are doing well in European football because that's when the big money comes in. I mean, a long time ago, Celtic were obviously sponsored by Sakala and Rangers were sponsored by Tennant, so was Celtic, of course. But yeah, those days are long gone. And then you look at it now. I mean, Celtic had to wear a Celtic FC Foundation on their sponsorship tonight, which tells you everything you need to know about the fact that, look, we've still got a long way to go in terms of where people would want Scottish football to be. It was great they were back in the map again in terms of Championship football. But at the same time, Celtic and Rangers in terms of pass marks, for me it would be an E.
Graham, I know we come back in the locker room in about 5 years' time and talk about that. Remember that season when Celtic, Rangers and Hearts were in Europe? Even though we're talking about the how many chances Celtic missed and all that, but when we come back to speak about that in 5 years' time, we'll not remember that. As you said last night, I mean, Celtic and Rangers and Hearts out of Europe before Guy Fawkes night.
If we're still here in 5 years' time, something's gone badly wrong with this show. No, I think you're probably right. Nobody's going to remember that, let's be honest, but it has been a very sobering disappointment for all the Scottish teams, and I'm going to include Hearts in that. Even though Hearts have won 2 games in the Conference League, it has been disappointing because I thought Hearts would get out of that group. I'm not going to lie, I did think they might get out of the group, finish in second, but it's not been the case. And Celtic and Rangers, they have just been against real quality. You know, I said this last night. You look at who Rangers are playing against: Napoli, Liverpool, Ajax. Celtic tonight, you're playing against Real Madrid, Leipzig, and Shakhtar. They're very difficult groups, but I do think that Celtic in every game have been competitive, and it's just having that bit of a more clinical edge and being a bit more experienced in European football. As Dave said, they're not really experienced enough, and I think a lot of these Celtic players will look back on this now and think, could I have maybe offered a little bit more? Could I have done a bit better? Potentially, yes, but they'll learn from this. I mean, who would have thought Greg Taylor playing at the Bernabeu? Who would have thought that a while ago? You know, it's great experience for these guys. And I think I heard a stat as well on the TV earlier on that Rio Hatate has been taken off in every game this season for Celtic. He obviously can't last 90 minutes yet. Now, I think Hatate's a very good player. He's a brilliant player, in fact.
Or maybe the new Tom Rodriguez.
Probably. But he's a brilliant player, and again, he'll learn from this. Again, what I like about Hatate is he plays with his head up. He's always looking for that next pass. And it's a learning experience for all these Celtic players, but I think they will learn. And they'll come back stronger next season. You'd like to hope that Rangers will do the same next season, and if any other Scottish clubs in Europe next season, that they'll learn from this as well. But it's been a disappointing campaign, and obviously Celtic getting beat 5-1 tonight, but you are up against, as I keep on going back to, you're up against guys like Valverde, Modric, Kroos, you know, Vinicius Jr. I mean, last week I watched Man United, and I think it was Anthony, the winger, had this supposedly brilliant bit of skill where all he does is spinning the ball and then passes the ball straight out of play. That wasn't brilliant. And then you look at Vinicius Jr. tonight, and he does a bit of a rainbow flick over 2 Celtic players. That's skillful. That's what you want to see as a football fan. And it's just that's what you're up against.
Dave, I was just listening to Mr. Duffy there, and I was thinking, well, that would be a very interesting show if we did a show with Josh as well, because I agree with you, Glenn, but if Josh was here, I would say, well, but that's in paper. Celtic's not won any game whatsoever. But I get what you're saying, Glenn, but I think Josh might disagree with you very slightly there. Dave, do you agree with Graham what he's saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's where we're at this precise moment in time. I mean, we've got some good players here in Scotland, don't we? I mean, Jota's free kick was just out of this world there. I was making a point to a few people, not to you guys, but I was making a point to a few people before I came on that if Courtois had been a yard to his left, I don't think Jota's free kick's going in. Or had he been 2 yards to his left, I don't think it's going in. But it's still a great strike nonetheless. The ability to get it round the wall and into the net is some going. Courtois one of the best goalkeepers in the world right now, alongside probably Allison and Ederson at City. They're probably the 3 best goalkeepers in the world right now. So, fantastic strike from Jota's point of view. But I think tonight shows that we've still got a long way to go. But also of course, we've still got a lot of quality players that are playing in Scottish football at this precise moment in time. I mean, let's be honest here. We've got the World Cup coming up, and I was asked this question on Monday night by somebody, not a journalist, but just somebody that obviously watches football and obviously is good pals with me, and obviously knows me because obviously my occupation, my part-time occupation, he was like, who do you think from the Scottish Premiership is going to go to the World Cup this year? And I was like singing a few players off them. Like I was going Martin Boyle, Hibs, even although he's a doubt, obviously, because he was injured at the weekend. You've got Kiro Bacchus at St Mirren, which you would find yourself perplexed if you were saying to yourself, a St Mirren player going to the World Cup. You've got Behich, Alzis Behich at Dundee United, perhaps. Goalkeeper, even although he's been a little bit pitiful lately, including that goal from Liverpool on Saturday, of course. You've got David Witherspoon at St Johnstone, a player that goes under the radar a little bit in my eyes because probably he's at St Johnstone and also at Canada and also he's getting on a bit in his career probably. You've also got other players that will come at my head in due course, but you forget about it at this precise time that could potentially go to the World Cup, and it shows we've got a very good product here in Scotland. But the fact that we don't produce on a European level sometimes rolls us under the rule a little bit. And this is where we've got a long way to go in that regard. I mean, I think domestic and international football has to be two completely different things. Well, it's two completely different things, but I think it's got to be underlined in two different things as well by the broadcasters or the media or whatever have you, because let's be honest, if Martin Boyle goes and scores an absolute screamer to send Australia at the last 16 of the World Cup, we're all hyping it up in Scotland, aren't we? We're going, Northfield Academy pupil Martin Boyle is absolutely delighted after scoring an absolute worldie in a game against Canada or something, just to give you an example. But yeah, going back on the game's point, we've got a very good standard and a long way out continuing. Let's be honest, if we get 6 to 8 players from Scottish football in the World Cup, it's the most we'll have had that's going to a tournament of that magnitude for a very long time, which tells you everything you need to know about the quality we'll have coming through. But at the same time as well, the big outcry, well, that's the big outcry is the wrong phrase, sorry. If you're Ange Postecoglou, you're just looking at that squad list yesterday privately and going, I'm delighted. Because you've got Kyogo getting a week's holiday minimum. You've got Hatate getting a week's holiday minimum. You've got Maeda getting a week's holiday minimum. Now, Maeda, as Graham alluded to, hasn't exactly been hitting all cylinders lately. But you've got players there who have been doing very well stuff for Celtic and will not be at the best best competition in the continent. Also, another player that I've got to get in there because I'm a little bit biased, and I interviewed him recently. Arnold Jim, he came at the World Cup with Cameroon, and I interviewed him a couple of weeks ago for the paper, so I thought I'd get him in there as well. So we've got some fantastic players that could potentially go to Qatar, and we need to be speaking to these players a lot more, in my honest opinion.
I'm gonna chuck in 2 more: Cammy Devlin and Nathaniel Atkinson for Hearts. They're with Australia. I'm gonna chuck them in and all.
Is Devlin fit just now?
He's hopefully back, possibly if not tomorrow. We're back for Sunday against Motherwell.
Right, okay, that's brilliant.
Obviously, that's a brilliant point that Dave makes because not in this initial we do it every week, but in some parts of the media, sorry, that cough again. They don't actually market Scottish football enough, and they don't talk the game up as well, and that's a real worry for the game going forward. But I was just going to say, Glenn, when we come to speak about Celtic and Rangers and Hearts, and we might do it in Friday. Sorry, guys, get upset you for the show on Friday, but we must involve Motherwell and Dundee United in there as well, because that was just embarrassing.
I think Motherwell was because of who they were playing against. An Irish side that, let's be honest, I think pretty much every other team in Scotland probably could have beat. Motherwell were very poor, but they got rid of Alexander and they've improved since then. Dundee United's a strange one because we were on the show the day after that first game at Tannadice praising United to the hilt against Dartmoor. They were outstanding. It was a great performance, and we thought, can they get through this? And then they go and get absolutely hammered in Holland. So yeah, it was a disappointment. But I think in the United's case, they were playing against a very good side. Now, Rangers and Celtic might have beaten them at Mar, I don't know, but they were a very good side. But that first game at Tannadice, United were brilliant, and we talked them up after that, and it was a massive disappointment. But yeah, Motherwell were very poor. And I think I said this before as well, that any Scottish team outside of Celtic, if an Aberdeen, Hearts, Hibs, United gets into Europe, well, maybe not United, they'll probably win the Championship, sorry, United fans, but any other Scottish team gets in Europe next season, you've got to have a bigger squad, because Hearts have suffered with that, playing Thursday, Sunday. It just doesn't work with a small squad. You need a bigger squad. But yeah, it's not been great. And again, I said this last night, and I'll say it again, and I don't want to give him airtime, but I'm going to say it anyway. But you look at last night on the show, I said, you look at that particular radio channel, and I guarantee they'll be on there slagging off Rangers. 10 minutes later, I go on Facebook, and they're all over it. And I know that again tonight after the Celtic game, they'll do exactly the same again, saying, Scottish football is absolutely awful. It's in the gutter. They just got hammered. These guys on that radio channel were average footballers, and they're even worse pundits. Scottish football, I think, is in a good place. It may not feel like it, but I think you look at Celtic's performance over these Champions League games. Celtic have played some really good stuff. They've just not been clinical enough. Yes, Rangers have not been particularly great, but I just think we, as a channel here, we will always talk up the Scottish game, and other folk, as you've mentioned earlier, they don't do that.
Sorry, Dave, do you mean Talk Sport?
Yeah.
Okay, fuck that.
So
I could have called it something else, but it's a family show.
So that means Dave was away then when you were talking about it last night, Graham. Well, did we go kick just like that? You see what I mean?
Exactly.
But Dave, obviously everybody knew Celtic were up against it tonight, and Celtic were out anyway. But I mean, just looking here, like Celtic have lost the last 6 Champions League games to a Spanish outfit, conceding 24 goals while scoring just 2 in return. That's quite a kind of like embarrassing record, and you can see the levels there between Scottish football and Spanish football.
Yeah, I was just going to give you Postecoglou quotes before I answer your question. He said, Celtic support was unbelievable. Obviously, it lost 5-1. I don't think anyone enjoys that kind of defeat. The reaction after the game was not just them trying to make us feel good. I think they can appreciate what the players are trying to do. Sorry, that gives us certainly massive motivation to reward them, to make sure we qualify again next year and make sure we perform better and give more moments like Jota did this evening, because that is what they deserve. That is the one disappointment. Ultimately, I am responsible for the approach we have taken and how we have gone about things. I would have wanted to repay all their support. I think that's quite an interesting point that Ange Postecoglou made in his last bit there. His approach, could it have been better? Yes. Has he got enough credit in the bank from Celtic supporters? 100%. Why? I'll give you three reasons. First and foremost, the fact that Celtic were quite simply in disarray before he took over. Secondly, style of football. And thirdly, the fact that Celtic are quite simply back in Champions League football. Yeah, there'll be a few moans and groans, but football fans are fickle. We've all touched upon that. And it's going to be an interesting one, that. But yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because has Celtic been embarrassing? It's a debate one, isn't it? Because they have had some games where they've not turned up. I think Leipzig, I don't know if you guys agree, but I think Leipzig away was their poorest showing in the Champions League this term. I think that was one game you look at and say they didn't turn up.
Before Graham answers that one, right, I want to come back into what you were saying about Postecoglou, and 100%, and I think it's a full moon outside tonight, because I totally agree with you, Dave, because when Postecoglou came in, Celtic were like a laughing stock of Scottish football. And you've got to remember where Postecoglou has came from. I mean, that night at Tynecastle, I mean, okay, it was his first game in. I think it was Kyogo's first game as well, and Hearts beat Celtic, was it 2-1 with something like 7 o'clock kickoff on the Saturday night. Terrible time.
7:45. And see that Hearts Celtic game, before you continue, that Hearts Celtic game, people were thinking Postecoglou, absolute laughing stock. He's a nothing manager. Look at him.
Yeah, but I know, but a lot of people's eating humble pie now, Dave. Do you know what I mean? And the rest is history, you know. But yeah, I mean, it's got a brilliant job. But I mean, obviously, Glenn, we're on here every week talking about the game, and tonight's the final game, and we're talking about what a Celtic got to learn. Let's not forget that this is Postecoglou's first Champions League experience, so there's a lot for him to take away as well.
I want to ask you a question, and I know it's probably off topic, but I want to ask you a question anyway, right? Now, obviously, Celtic went for Eddie Howe. He didn't get it. Postecoglou's got the job, and he's done a brilliant job. You look at what Eddie Howe is doing now in Newcastle with the backing of that Saudi money. Now, if you swap the tables around, do you think that Postecoglou would be doing just as well in the English Premiership with the money that he would have got from the Saudis as what Eddie Howe has done at Newcastle?
I think he would. I honestly think he would, because quite simply, Postecoglou has went to Celtic and been astute. He's went to Celtic and took in players that Celtic probably wouldn't have tried to get before. He's went down a completely different avenue at Celtic, bringing in players from Australia, bringing in players from Japan. Hearts have went down the Australia route as well, Graham, and that's what they're absolutely for Hearts, because they've brought in Devlin, they've brought in Atkinson, they've brought in Keogh. Now, the latter's maybe not exactly on the level of the previous two, but they're still good players in their own rights. They've brought in Joe Hart, Celtic. Cameron Carter-Vickers has been a revelation. So has Jota. Jota's, well, like, let's be honest, I think Jota would walk into Newcastle's team right now. And that's even with the fact that Newcastle are doing so well. Now, Eddie Howe and Ange Postecoglou are two completely different managers, right? But at exactly the same time as well. I'll flip the coin here. Would Eddie Howe have done as well in Scottish football? That's the question I look at. I think about it in my head and go, I'm not sure. Why? Because Eddie Howe is more deep thinking, or deep wine, sorry, than Ange Postecoglou. Ange Postecoglou's front foot. Whilst Eddie Howe's more, let's be patient, let's break teams if we possibly can. And let's be honest, I think Celtic did the right thing with not going for Eddie Howe, because, let's be honest, could Eddie Howe have worked with John Kennedy? Could Eddie Howe have worked with Gavin Strachan? I don't think so. The fact that the stumbling block was the lack of coaches he could bring in tells you everything you need to know about the fact that Eddie Howe can't adapt. In silence.
Yeah, so no, I was just trying to think of what Graham was saying early on about Postecoglou. Obviously, we can have a whole show about this, but yeah, I mean that's an interesting question. I think part of it's to do with money, but part of me is thinking about the man management as well. So I'm not so sure. Obviously, the thing, if Newcastle was in the Champions League, yes, they would have qualified because money talks and all that. But yeah, it's just a bit of a learning curve for kind of like Celtic, you know. I mean, you always got to get a negative Celtic fan to say, "Oh, Ange Postecoglou must go after that Champions League performance." No, because I mean, you just have to look at his record since he's come in. Okay, he's made one or two kind of iffy decisions in terms of they went to Ibrox in the first game of the season, and he played. He never put Kyogo up front. Kyogo was missing, but he learned from that mistake as well. So you know, it's a very interesting question that
I think Stephen McGowan of the Daily Mail raised a very good point in PLZ Soccer yesterday, where I forgot what the question was about, but it was about managers in the Champions League. And Stephen McGowan made the point that you're one or two bad results away from casualty. And that appears to be the story for Giovanni Van Bronckhorst. Ange Postecoglou maybe not the same. You look at managers such Tedesco for Leipzig. He got relinquished after one game for simply losing at Shakhtar. Obviously, the table's turned now, but you're one or two defeats for being a casualty with your own support in the biggest stage in world football, arguably, or domestically.
Graham?
It's good to see that Red Scotlanders watching us again. He said Celtic will improve the first team and retain their best players, I reckon. I think he's right. And I think that's the thing. I think Postecoglou, the signings that he's made, pretty much
Oh,
It's obviously Stormy and Better Cook, so.
yeah, I think a UFO's just past his house, Dave, and he's yeah, but
There was maybe
Yeah,
power cuts today. There was maybe power cuts
no,
today.
I'm in Pennicut. There's power cuts every day.
he can still hear, so we better. He can still hear, so we better watch what we're saying.
This is like a library.
VAR, we're going to look at there, Graham.
Am I back?
You're back, yeah. You're back for now. And away again. I'll tell you what I like about Postecoglou, Dave, right? And you make the comment early on, right? If Eddie Howe was in Graham's back, right? But we'll go back to Graham in a minute, right? But if Eddie Howe was here in Scotland, right, he would go France or Spain or different countries to get different players. What I like about Postecoglou is nobody heard of Kyogo, and people were like slagging off football in Japan just because they've never heard of Kyogo, Maida, Hatate and stuff like that, you know. So Postecoglou is kind of like thinking outside the box, if you know what I mean, in terms of tapping into different markets all over the world that people have never heard of before.
Yeah, there's a lot of parallels between Postecoglou and Brendan Rodgers, wasn't there? When obviously Postecoglou was doing so well at Celtic. And when you look at the difference in signings, I mean, Brendan Rodgers was signing Scott Sinclair, for goodness sake. I mean, Scott Sinclair was obviously still hot property at that specific moment in time. But you look at Scott Sinclair now, he's now playing League Two, I think, for Bristol Rovers or something like that, which tells you everything you need to know. And obviously, the players that he brought, Fraser Foster was a good addition at the time. And he signed some good defenders, but at the same time as well, you can argue Postecoglou went out there and took in players from Japan, Australia that nobody knew about.
Yeah.
It was players he knew from the bottom of his heart. It was players that the podcasters in this world, and the fan media in this world, and the journalists in this world, and the overall fan of this world were looking going, who the hell's that guy, man? And yeah, what a job he's done. But go back to Graham's point earlier on. I reckon had Eddie Howe been in Ange Postecoglou's position, as you said, it'd have been bringing in players from England. It'd have been bringing in players from Livingston, Aberdeen, Hearts, Hibs.
Yeah, basically the obvious teams, Dave, and that's my point.
It would have been getting players from Premier League clubs award in England. Yeah. Been getting players in maybe free agents in the Championship or 300,000 valuation, for example. I doubt it would have been expertise of Ange Postecoglou. Let's be honest, Eddie Howe is doing a great job at Newcastle in England, but I think the overall strategy, the overall structure, not the financial perspective, but overall strategy of Newcastle suits Eddie Howe because he's been allowed. Yes, he's been allowed to get his own players in because of the financial coach at Newcastle just now. Alongside that as well, he's also been given a squad that was fairly similar to Bournemouth to work with. And he had that idea to go and embed players in early doors. That's exactly what he's done. Would he have been just as big a success at Celtic if we flipped the coin here? I don't think he would have been.
Let's go back to Pennacook and see if that UFO's landed on Graham's house.
I am here.
Oh,
I
you
think
hate. No comment there. Yeah, so you were making the comment, Graham, about well, I can't remember the comment you were actually making. It was an interesting comment, but it was, we were talking about Eddie Howe and Postecoglou.
you're like my wife; she never listens either. I hope she's not listening to this. I'll get battered. But I think it's not just the signings that Postecoglou was made; it's what he's got out of players that he's already got there. You look at, for example, Greg Taylor. You know, people probably thought Greg Taylor was out the door when Ange Postecoglou came in, and he's managed to turn him into probably one of Celtic's best players this season. I think Taylor's been excellent. So I think Postecoglou's done a really good job, and I think I kind of agree. I think if Eddie Howe had come to Scotland, I don't think it would have lasted very long. I think
Ralston as well.
Sorry?
Ralston as well. He's
Yeah,
turned
Ralston as well,
Ralston around.
Yeah, Ralston as well. And even if you look at a young guy like Stephen Welch, he came in and did a really good job as well. So I think Postecoglou's got a lot out the players that he's already got there, plus the signings that he's already made. And as I said last night, they've got another one coming in as well, another Japanese player. So, he knows that market very well, and he's got the best out of them. And I just think Celtic are probably going to go from strength to strength, which is a worry for the rest of the teams in Scotland, Rangers in particular. Because I know that Celtic got beat against St Mirren a couple of weeks ago, but again, we talked about it earlier on, but Celtic went to a very difficult place at the Spaghetti Head on Sunday and absolutely dominated Livingston. So Celtic, domestically, are looking very, very strong. European football, yeah, maybe not the best, but I just think Postecoglou, as I said as well on the show numerous times before, he's a very likeable guy as well. The way he speaks to the press, the way he handles the media, he just speaks really well. If you listen to what he said earlier on when Dave mentioned his comments, and then you go back to last night and you listen to Van Bronckhorst's comments, very different mentality in both of them.
Steve Van Bronckhorst last night, when he's getting asked the question from I'm presuming it's Rangers Review, or they put the video on Twitter, about obviously the finances. This is where my rank comes in, because you've got Calvin Bassey money, you've got Europa running money, Champions League money, you've got who else? There's going to be one or two others that are going to spring to mind that I've completely forgotten. I've mentioned Bassey.
Southampton, Glenn.
Cameron, not Carter, Jorebo money.
Jorebo, yeah.
And there's something else I forgot about. Where's the money? That's going to be an interesting AGM when that's happens next month, as we touched upon last night.
But yeah, that's funny, Dave. Because after the show last night, I went and watched Gio's press conference, right? But I think he gave the answer like it's not to give you money, and I'm thinking, well, yes, it is, and also it was also asked last night, was as an issue at Ibrox in terms of like financial and stuff. Obviously, he wasn't going to give anything away, but I mean, Graham's right, because it's like night and day listening to Postecoglou and Van Bronckhorst, because when you listen to Van Bronckhorst, he sounds a kind of beaten man, if that makes sense.
Well, there was some lawyer, some PR guy, or some guy hiding behind the scenes, probably going, "Oh, I've got a lot of money here. Oh, I've got a lot." These Rangers fans go and dream of the money I'm getting in here. Or there's no football, there's no money going to the football department, so I'm going in here.
I was going to ask you, Dave, as well. Right? Do you think, see how, because Celtic and Rangers and Hearts has all been in European football, is that more money then going to the rest of the clubs, in Scottish football?
Well, when the clubs in Scottish football do well in Europe, then should be, yeah. I mean, we've seen situations in the past where Celtic Rangers have all done well in Europe, or Champions League in particular, sorry, and the rest of the clubs in the Scottish Premiership have all gotten a six-figure fee out of it. I don't think they'll get that now, of course, because obviously both sides are probably out of Europe, so the income coming in as a result of Celtic Rangers It's just achievements is the wrong word, but their commitments in Europe won't exactly be the same. But yeah, it's an interesting aspect because it's going to be good to see how this small either strive or affect the rest of Scottish football because it's going to be interesting. I think the next three games for Celtic and Rangers tell us if their confidence is down. Sorry, I don't think it is, but it'll be interesting to see if that's the case or not. And then obviously the World Cup comes along, and it'll be interesting to see what happens after Christmas. Obviously, from a Celtic Rangers point of view, they'll be even stronger after Christmas in the domestic level now because obviously you don't have the European football to go worry about. So it's going to be an interesting one.
Graham, Reg Scott comments in here again makes a good point, but I'll be interested to find out because he says Celtic needs to strengthen and flair forward key areas. I'm not so sure in terms of the Scottish game and the European level. Maybe yes, but I don't know how you guys feel. But whereabouts would Celtic have to strengthen if they're going to go back into Europe next season? And if Reg Scott wants to come back in as well, but I thought we'd just ask you guys as well. Where's the key areas?
I think potentially another centre back, another strong centre half to play pro alongside Carter Vickers. I do like Jens, but I think another strong centre back. I think a real top quality midfielder, but they're very hard to come by. I think probably another striker as well. I do like Giakoumakis and I do like Kyogo, but I think we need one more up there. And maybe another right back potentially. I mean, I think you're right. I think domestically Celtic are fine. I don't think they need to strengthen that many areas. But when you play European football and you're going up a level, you do have to strengthen a certain area. So I can see where Red Scotland's coming from. But I think Postecoglou's going to know what he wants. He's going to know the market is going to go down. As I say, he's got another Japanese player coming in. So I think Celtic will be fine domestically. I think Red Scotland says centre forward, centre midfield, centre back and goalkeeper. I mean, I think they probably will strengthen, but it's mainly for European football because I think domestically, I think, to be honest, Celtic could probably dominate for another few years. And I hate saying this as a Hearts fan, but I think they could dominate for a few years again.
For me, if a goalkeeper comes in, you've got to worry about Benji Seacrest. Centre half, I agree with him. Centre mid, probably just for strength and depth. And up front, probably just for competition as well.
Yeah, I think Celtic's okay in the goalkeeping department as well because as Joe Hatton get like 3 years left in his deal.
Which means I think if you bring in a goalie, Ollie won't get games, yes, but at the same time, Benji Seacrest for me would have to go out alone.
Bring back Barkas.
What I was who? Bring back Barker. I think he's actually playing for some walking football team somewhere up in East Kilbride. I think I saw one of the ring debuts last week, or maybe that was for his other job. I'm not really sure. But Graham, you do miss and see the difference in the midfield when Callum McGregor's not playing. And that was the same when Scott Brown was at Celtic as well.
Yeah, I think, McGregor goes off against Leipzig disappointingly and he's never returned. It's a bad injury and, he's a leader, not just for Celtic, but for Scotland as well. McGregor brings so much to that team. He's the player that wants to get in the ball. He wants to make things happen. He always comes and, he always looks for the ball. And that's what you need. And I think Celtic do have players that are similar to that. I mean, I do like Matt O'Reilly. I think he's a really good technical player, but I think there's no doubt they do miss McGregor's presence, and the sooner they get him back, probably the better for Celtic fans.
Yeah, Dave, so we've got a few minutes left before we wrap the Champions League coverage up for this season. How would you sum it up for Celtic in one word? No, I'm only kidding. Enough. Obviously, we'll come back to speak about this on the show on Friday. How would you?
E. The podcast right. E.
Excellent. No.
No.
Yeah.
It's E. Better than F. Better than Field.
Yeah. F minus. Yeah. Okay. So thanks to Dave and Glenn for joining me again on a busy Champions League week and a very disappointing end to the Champions League campaign for both Celtic and Rangers. We'll be back tomorrow night at the other time of 6 o'clock on Indie Live Radio and Independence Live for a Hearts final game in the Conference League. And then we'll be back on Friday with a big preview show and Sunday with the big review show of the weekend, including Rangers against St. Johnstone. See you soon. Good night.
It's Champions League time once again, and you can catch up with what's been happening in the games